This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
U.S. crude stocks built unexpectedly last week, the Energy Information Administration said, as refiners were slow to restore production after a cold freeze that shut operations. Crude inventories rose by 19 million barrels in the week ended January 6 to 439.6 million barrels. Analysts polled by Reuters had expected a 2.2 million barrel drop. It was the largest weekly build since February 2021, and the third largest increase on record. It's still the backwash of the freeze-in. The crude oil number implies that the refineries are not up and running, said Bob Yager, Director of Energy Futures at Mizuho in New York.
Oil prices edged up on Thursday, building on gains in the previous session as China's demand outlook improved, though gains were limited ahead of upcoming inflation data from the United States. Brent crude had risen 16 cents, or 0.2%, to $82.83 per barrel by 0442 GMT, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude also rose 13 cents, or 0.2%, to $77.54 per barrel. Both benchmarks rose 3% in Wednesday's session, boosted by hopes for an improved global economic outlook and concern over the impact of sanctions on Russian crude output.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
The world imported more liquefied natural gas, LNG, in 2022 than ever before, but the war in Ukraine has meant that the growth was concentrated in wealthy European countries and away from poorer Asian countries. Total global LNG imports rose to 409 million tons last year from 386.5 million tons in 2021, according to data from Refinitiv, while figures from commodity analysts Kpler showed a slightly lower 400.5 million tons, up from 379.6 million tons. The record volumes were to be expected given the commissioning of new supply trains as well as increased demand for the super-chilled fuel, especially from Europe as it turned away from Russian piped natural gas in the wake of Moscow's February 24 invasion of Ukraine.
China's CNOOC Limited has raised its 2023 production target by around 8% to a record 650 million to 660 million barrels of oil equivalent, BO, it said on Wednesday. The state-controlled offshore oil and gas company produced about 620 million BO last year, exceeding its goal of 600 to 610 million BO, CNOOC said in a filing to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange outlining its annual strategic outlook. CNOOC is aiming for 6% average annual production growth by 2025 when output is forecast to hit 2 million BO a day, Chief Executive Officer Zhou Xinwei told reporters following the release. Next, we have the top news in metal markets. India is exploring ways to secure supplies of metals such as copper and lithium from some of the world's top producers by acquiring overseas mines, as part of efforts to meet rising domestic demand, government sources said. To start with, India has identified 1 copper and 2 lithium mines in resource-rich Argentina to either acquire or secure long-term leases, the sources said. The sources, with direct knowledge of the matter, did not wish to be identified, citing official rules.
India's gold imports in December plunged 79% from a year earlier to the lowest level in at least 2 decades for the month as a rally in local prices near record high dampened demand, 2 government sources told Reuters on Thursday. Lower imports by the world's second biggest consumer of the precious metal could limit gains in global prices trading near their highest in 8 months. The drop in imports could help in bringing down India's trade deficit and support the rupee.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Malaysia on Thursday called on countries producing palm oil to strengthen cooperation following new European Union (EU) legislation aimed at reducing the use of palm oil-based fuels. The EU is a key palm oil importer, but demand is expected to fall significantly within the next 10 years due to a renewable energy directive to phase out palm-based transport fuels by 2030 over perceived links to deforestation. The bloc last month agreed on a new law that prevents the sale of commodities linked to deforestation in the 27-country bloc, raising an outcry from top producers Indonesia and Malaysia. That is all for today's news on commodity market. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.